I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai, Bashem Rakakadas. Salutations to all the elders, Akim, Aqua, the elders and apostles. Peace and greetings, Shalom to you. All those in GMS that spreading this truth and sincerity, 100% true. I'm going to get into this lesson. Man, it might be a little bit long lesson, but some things that I think need to really be brought out when it comes with these multiple wives. Because a lot of people are trying to throw shade on that, not knowing that these multiple wives is what's going to bring back the whole house of Israel. Because it states that all Israel will be saved, but those that are not saved, they will be put to death because of their sins and transgressions and not wanting to turn around and do what's right. But also, that being said, it's only an elect that will be saved in these last days. I'm hoping that I am one, as if we all are hoping that we are one. Especially those that are out here spreading this word to their best ability. So let's get into it. We're going to turn to a chapter that a lot of people look down upon, but this is also a chapter that we look upon that is good, not just for physical needs, but we have to also bring back the kingdom. And it needs to be done fast and speedily. And in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. This is Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1. Now it says in that day, as you already know, the present day that we are in now, so far as the true Israelites, we don't have multiple wives. Alright? And women are not eating their own food. And they're not wearing their own apparel. And women have not had their reproach taken away. So this is most definitely talking about something of the future. But as you see how it talks about 7 women to 1 man, because not all men are going to be saved. It's going to be more women out there than it's going to be men. And that's how it's supposed to be. And I'm going to later break that down in this lesson. It says, let us be called by thy name. If you look at these women now, a lot of these women can't find a good man. It used to be that the opposite. But now that is taken away because we've seen that the woman had decided to side with the devil. So it says, only let us be called by thy name. They're going to want to have our names. To take away our reproach. To take away our reproach is basically, in layman terms, to take away your mess up. For all the stuff that you've done. By not listening. So you will have to have your reproach taken away. And how that's going to be done is that we're going to be forgiving these women. And these women will have to lay with us because in marriage comes with sex. So, when it says in that day, 7 women will take hold of 1 man, sex will be going on, and sex will be bringing back the remaining of Israel, because all of Israel will be saved. We're going to turn to our next chapter, 1 Kings, chapter 14, 2, 3, and 4 is the verses. Now this is 1 Kings chapter 11. We're going to start with verses 3 and 4, and then we will break down verse 2. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David's his father. So as you see, these women turned away his heart. Alright? They turned away his heart. But as you look into verse 2, which is above verse 3, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. So when you look at this, it said nothing wrong about having the wives or the concubines. It's just letting you know when you have these wives, if you are not strong, they can turn your faith away. And that's what happened. King Solomon got his faith taken away by these women because he was not being strong. We are going to turn to Genesis chapter 3 verse 6. So this is Genesis chapter 3 verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eye, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So as you've seen this is an example of how a woman could turn you away if you're not being strong. Now, they like to say, well, Solomon, he got messed up because he had many wives. What if all those wives he had was good? Are you still going to say that he's not supposed to have many wives? I mean, we have one woman who was Eve who turned her husband away. So it's not about having multiple wives. It's about being steadfast and strong in this truth. There's nothing wrong with having many wives. And I'm going to keep proving that going down this lesson. But I want to break down these scriptures so you can see the storyline of how all this is going to fold out. So you have many women that turn a man away, and you have just one woman that turned a man away. We are going to go into Psalms 82 verses 6 and 7. Alright, this is Psalms 82 verses 6 and 7. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the prince. Now, this is why I'm bringing this out. When it's saying that we are like gods, because we was made in the image of God, and that's Yahweh. By Hashem Yahushua. We was made in that image of God. And when you think about God, and you think about Yahweh the Father, he has many people that worship him. And Yahushua has many people that worship him. And we as the many, we worship Yahweh Shai. So it's only fitting for the same stuff to be done for those that was made in the image of the Father Yahweh through Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, which is where we get this knowledge. So by us having many wives, they are worshiping us, because with the many wives we can have many children, and that is more souls that could be worshiping Yahweh Shai, worshiping Yahweh. And that's how it's supposed to be. You cannot have a planet that has more people in it than you have fruits and vegetables. How is that supposed to sustain those people? You're always going to have more fruits and vegetables and stuff and water than people on that planet. Because if you did not, how is that supposed to sustain those people? There'll be no way for those people to be sustained. So therefore you have to have more of it. That's being the same thing when it comes to a man having many wives. You're going to have a man that's going to have many wives. Because that's how it's designed to be. We're going to turn to John chapter 4, verse 23 and 24. This is John chapter 4, verses 23 and 24. But the hour cometh, and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So the reason why I'm bringing this out is to emphasize when it talks about the Father being worshipped. It says, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. It didn't say the Father seeketh one to worship him, just one person. He wants many people to worship him. So just as the Father has many worshiping him, we're going to have many wives worshiping us, but not over the Father. Because everybody is going to be worshiping Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But how it's being done is levels to it. And we must follow how it's supposed to be done. So just as the Father has many worshiping him, we are going to have many wives. And we're going to have many children. We are going to turn to Deuteronomy 29, verse 26. This is Deuteronomy 29, verse 26. For they went and served other gods and worshiped them, gods whom they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. See, that's where the stuff where problems arise. And that's what was with King Solomon. His wives worshiped other gods. And that's where the downfall came from. That was the downfall. And that has always been the downfall of the Israelites. Being rebellious, worshiping other gods, not following the laws and the statutes and commandments. So if you have multiple wives and that's what they're doing, if you're not steadfast and strong, they could sway you off track. And then you could be worshiping those gods And even if you're not worshiping those gods, you could be doing things that you're not supposed to be doing or not taking care of, because the women that you are with is slowly but surely bringing you to ruin. And you have to be very careful upon that. We're going to turn to Genesis chapter 16, verse 3. This is Genesis 16, verse 3. And Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelled 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, and Abraham to be his wife. And when he went into Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised on her eyes. Alright, so with that being said, she gave her maid to her husband. Later on she was mad, but that's beside the point. The point was she gave another woman to lay with her man. And if you know the story was Sarai, which later became Sarah, she was barren. She had no children at that time. So she wanted a child. So she took her maid, and that's how it went down. That's showing you again that there's nothing wrong with a woman sharing a man. So that's how it is. I mean, there's no way that you can try to get around it. This is Genesis 25. We're going to read verses 1 and 6. Then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah, right? So that's showing another wife that he took. In verse 6, but unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham gave gifts, and sent them away from Isaac his son, while he was yet alive, eastward unto the east country. So Abraham even had concubines. Now listen, if you know the story of Abraham, I'm going to say it now, but I'm also going to show the verses to prove it. But Abraham was considered a friend of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah. He was considered a friend of Yahweh. He was considered a friend. So since he was considered a friend, if he's doing something wrong, why would Yahweh be friends with him? Through Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah. Why would he? If having multiple wives and concubines is a sin, why is the father going to have any dealings with you? That's something to be thought about. So if you see in 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 8, and I gave thee the master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had not been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. So this right here is talking about the time when King David took another man's wife. And here's the father saying, to prevent that, basically saying if you had so much lust in you, the father would have gave him more women, more wives, if that was the case. That's also proving that the father does not have any problem with a man having multiple wives and even having concubines. Because this is right here showing that the father is even willing to give a man more wives and more women if he's feeling there is some problem. Because he didn't want King David to do something like that, to take another man's wife, and then later on he had that man put to death because lust was in his eyes. And that caused a lot of problems for King David and his household. So, there's no way that you can say that God has a problem with a man having multiple wives. And as is also brought out in the book of Leviticus, chapter 20, verse 10, and the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. So as you see it right there, this is in the book of Leviticus. So that is what adultery is. When a man sleeps with another man's wife. It's not when a man sleeps with another woman. Now, if that woman is unmarried and he sleeps with her, he is not committing adultery. He's only committing adultery if she is a married woman. That is the difference. A woman cannot sleep with multiple men. That's adultery. A woman can only sleep with one man, but a man can have many wives, as long as those wives are unmarried. We're going to turn to Genesis chapter 18, verses 17 and 18. So as you see here in Genesis 18, verses 17 and 18, and the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that things which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? So think about that. The Father Yahweh said he's not going to hide from Abraham the things which he do. If you're a true friend of the Father, he's not going to hide from you. And if he wasn't a true friend, he wouldn't make him a mighty nation. It says right that Abraham shall surely become a mighty nation. This is moreover showing you that the Father had no problem with men having multiple wives. He became the friend of the Father of the universe, and he made him a mighty nation of Israelites. Let's let that also be clear too. We're going to turn to James chapter 2, 23. So this is James chapter 2, verse 23. And the scriptures was fulfilled, where saith, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for the righteous, and he was called the friend of God. He was called the friend of Yahweh. It clearly says there right there in James chapter 2:23. He was called the friend of God. So if there was any sin or any fault of him having these multiple wives and concubines, it would have been stated. The same thing with King David. The same thing with Solomon. If there was any problem with that, it would state in there that that's a problem. But it was not stated because it ain't no problem. This is Isaiah 41, verse 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. It brings it out again. Abraham was the friend of Yahweh through Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. He was the friend. You're not going to be friends with the creator of the universe through his son Yahweh Shai. And you're doing all these craziness. These people that's not going to make it through this time, they wasn't friends with the Father through Yahweh Shai. Because you cannot make it through the Father without going through Yahweh Shai. So you have to think about that. If you're doing anything wrong, you're not going to make it. If Abraham, Jacob, and David, and all of them was really going so far off, they would not be able to make it. They would not be friends. And that is really the goal, is to be friends with Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. This is Ephesians chapter 5. We're going to go into 24, 25, 27, 28, and 31. I want to make a point right here. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. As it's bringing out again, husband, loving your wives, because you're going to have multiple wives, and telling in Christ, love the church, because he's going to have multiple people worshiping him. It even brings out that the angels worship Yahweh Shai. So if the angels are worshiping Yahweh Shai, and that's many of them, the men are worshiping Yahweh Shai, the wives are worshiping Yahweh Shai, and the children are worshiping Yahweh Shai. So it's only fitting for us men to have our wives worshiping us. For our wives to do the things we need them to do. That he might press it into himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkles or any such thing, but that it should be holy, without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. We're going to go into verse 31. For this cause shall a man leave his father, which is the first one you should be looking up to, and mother, which is second, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. So when you think about that, The reason why I'm bringing this out, because this is going to hit. It said they should be one flesh. Someone would use that. You see what it says right there? A man should have his wife. And it says two. And they should be one flesh. Yay. Well, look at the Father. He has many people worshiping him through Yahweh Shai. So since that's being the case, wouldn't we all be on one accord? All on the same page? The Father can have multiple people worshiping him. And we all could be as one. If you have multiple kids, are you supposed to just love one of them? No. You're a family. You're going to love all of them. You could be a husband and have multiple wives and love all of them. But for a woman, that can't be done. A woman's either going to like one man and not like the other man. And I'm going to break that down. So this right here is 1 Timothy chapter 3. We're going to go into verse 2. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, adapt to teach. All right? Someone would take a verse like this and try to manipulate this verse, where it says that a bishop should be a husband of one wife. Well, let's really think about that and let's really look into that. Looking at a time of limiting, those women were really going off during those times, such as they're going off now. So it will be hard for you to be, at that time, to be in the church and you're trying to be a bishop and you're dealing with multiple wives. And let's say with multiple wives, you're going to have multiple problems, especially if they're not doing right. And women back during those days were doing a lot of stuff that was wrong. We want to try to paint this picture that only men are out here messing up and doing things wrong. Women was doing wrong as well. And I'm going to bring that out in verse 10. And let this also first be proved, then let them use the office of a deacon, being found blameless. Even so must their wives. See, it says wives. It didn't say his wife. It says wives. Be grave, not slanderers, sober, faithful in all things. So that's even talking about for a deacon. Because some had one wife back then. Some had multiple wives back then. But as it's bringing out, it's saying that how your wives should be conducting themselves, or even if it's one wife. Not a slanderer. To be sober, faithful in all things. So when you're in these positions, you want to make sure that you have your household in check. Especially when it's coming to these women. Because what it would do, as it has shown in the past, when you have women that are going off, what it can do is possibly make the man go off, even if he stays faithful to the truth. He might be so grieved with wives that are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. He might not have time to overlook his scriptures and do the things he's supposed to do in the church, because he got wives that are going off and not doing right. And then you got to tend to that. And that takes time away from trying to help those that are in the flock. Because our end goal is to help them make it through Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. so they can know the truth, know the true teachings, not know all these lies that we learn in these churches. And going to verse 12, let the deacon be the husband of one wife, ruling their children and their own houses well. Now, as you see right there, as it says a one wife, and that's probably mostly because of all the craziness that was going on back then. It's hard to try to deal with multiple wives and they're going off, and then you got children as well. That's something to be thought about. But see, in the new world, we're not going to have that problem. So when you have a bishop, when you have a deacon, and you have these apostles, they're not going to have all this craziness what we're going through now. So it will be no problem with a bishop in the future having multiple wives or a deacon or anything of the sort. I wouldn't even advise a man right now to take multiple wives, because you see how these girls out here, what they doing. They screaming they don't need a man. They out here pop locking, dropping it, doing things they're not supposed to be doing. So to do that, all you really going to be doing is bringing more troubles into your life. That's why I like how it says in that day, 7 women would take hold of one man. Because now all this craziness that's going on will be out the way. So taking hold of 7 women is not going to be as hard as it would be if you try to do that right now in the present time. So just like in the book of 1 Corinthians 7 verses 39, the wife is bound by the law as long as her husband liveth. But if her husband be dead, she is at liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. So think about that. I mean, that right there is plain and simple. So if a woman has a husband and he passes away, she's at liberty to marry another man. But as it specifies, to marry a man that's only in the Lord. That means only a believer. Because if she is a believer, why would she want to marry just any old man that's an unbeliever? Because now that man would take her out of her true belief for Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So that's why this was put here. For women from when they lose their husband. And also how that helps. It helps from a woman from being a widow. So if you have, say for instance, you have a brother at that time, and let's say he had 2 wives, and she lost her husband. Now that her husband is gone, she is free to marry whomever she wants. So if that brother says, I'm going to take her to be a wife, there's nothing wrong with that. For the grounds is she has no husband. Her husband is dead. That is not committing adultery. So on both sides are now covered. The man that marries her does not have to be considered adulterous, because now her husband has passed away, and she won't be considered adulterous because her husband passed away. It goes both ways, and it also keeps her from being a widow, because for a woman to be a widow, that's a lot of stress on her. Now she can come in within the family, have a place to stay. She can have help when she needs help, and if she has children, now her children can play with the other children, and they can get any type of need, food, shelter. That's imagine if stuff was like that going on now. And that also helps with finances. So imagine if that her new husband had 2 wives now, and then if she comes into that fold and she is working, now it's more finances. So now the house is going to actually be even better. That's why the Father, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, has set these things up to work that way. But as you see the system that we are in now, they don't want you to try to have multiple wives. Because they know that if we had situations like this and we was able to come like this, that's why they want us to always to be divided. But if we did stuff like this, then we will be more better financial and more stronger spiritually. This is Malachi chapter 2 verses 15 and 16. And did not he make one, yet had he seduced the spirit, and wherefore one, that he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of your youth. For the Lord, the God of Israel, says, he that he hateth putteth away. So the Father hates a divorce. He don't want you to put away your wife. He wants the man to stay with his wife as long as your wife isn't out there committing adultery. That's what he wants. He wants the wife to stay with the husband and wants the husband to stay with the wife. Because see, back in those days, the men were giving their wives bills of divorce for when they was having problems dealing with them, and also when they just didn't want to take care of them no more. And that's not something you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stay with your wife. In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 32, but I say unto you that whoever shall put away his wife, saying, for the cause of fornication causeth her to commit adultery, and whoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. So you just can't just be putting your wives away. If she commits adultery, then you can put her away, because now she has broken that law. Because you've seen how back in the day, if they committed adultery, they got stoned. It was no time to be playing. You was brought out and you was stoned. It was no games being played back then. And also in Matthew chapter 19, verses 9, and I say unto you, whoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery, and whoever marrieth her, which is put away, doeth commit adultery. Verse 12, for they are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and they are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. So the reason why I brought that out, because if you don't want to get married because you want to put the kingdom first, it's nothing wrong with that. But once you're married, you should try to do your best to work that out. But if you're out here stepping off and you're a woman, well, you got grounds for that divorce. And that brings it back to Leviticus 20:10. It says, if a man takes of another man's wife, it There's nothing wrong with a man that he wants to have another wife. We're gonna turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 15. Alright, so this is 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 15. But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God have called us to peace. So if your mate becomes unbelieving, and they start going off basically, because if you marry someone that's in the truth, and it says unbelieving, so that means they started going off. You know, you can separate from them. You can separate, but that doesn't mean that gives you grounds to start having sex. So the woman, if the say that the man is he went off, that woman can separate herself and be like the eunuch. And eunuchs, they don't have sex. You could do that and be steadfast in the truth, but you can't separate from your husband and then you want to start sleeping around. You can't do that because that's still your husband. That's someone you still made a covenant with through sex. Because that's what marriage is. Marriage is sex. And just over you separated, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take care of your duties. As it's brought out in 2 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. But if any provideth not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he have denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So when you think about it, say that you're a husband and your wife is going off. Say that she committed adultery, and let's say that she ran off with the kids. You still have to take care of those children. You still have to do the necessary things, because as it states, you're going to be less of a man. But if everything is going well, which it will be in the future, in the kingdom, as is brought out in Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1, you're gonna see how it is how Proverbs comes to light. Proverbs 31, verses 15 to 16. She ariseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She is considered a field, and a buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planted a vineyard. So that the reason why I'm bringing that out is when you think about, if you have a woman who is your wife, and your wives are all doing what they're supposed to do, and they all doing this in Proverbs 31. And Proverbs 31 talks about how a woman should be conducting herself. So if she's in the vineyard, she's planting her garden, her food, and doing her things. That's more women that's able to do the work. That's more women that's able to take care of the kids. A lot of women like to say, oh man, I wish I had someone that could take care of my children and stuff like that. That's why it's more beneficial for a man to have multiple wives. So when one wife is tired, the other wife can watch the kids. When the other wife is watching the kids, the other one can cook. The other ones could do things around the house, and what that does, that's more beneficial to the women of that household. That way, no one is tired. Everybody's looked out after, and they're one big family. And if anything comes up financially, say if one wife is out of a job, if you have three wives, just saying for instance, the other two is working, and then the husband is working. So you could just if y'all able to afford it, maybe that one wife who, let's say for example, she recently lost her job, she could stay home and watch the kids. You see how much healthcare is these days. It's very, very expensive. That's why it's benefiting for us to have multiple wives. Y'all women have to get with the program and stop looking at this in a bad way. I mean, if you look at Jacob, which is from his bloodline, it's how we got the 12 tribes. And Jacob had 4 wives. He had 4 wives. So the father of the universe again, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, said there's nothing wrong when Jacob had those 4 wives. If it was, it would have been stated. It would have been stated multiple times if it was wrong for any of the father's prophets to have multiple wives. It only became a problem is when you let the women lead you astray. That's the time when it's only a problem. We're going to turn to Matthew chapter 6, verses 24. No man can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and demons. You can't. So when you think about that, that's the same. That's a two-edged sword. That verse can be used for telling someone that's in the truth, you can't be serving these other gods, which is true. But this is also effective for when it comes for women. For a woman can't have 2 husbands. You got these things out here. I seen you got women that it's one woman and she got 2 husbands. I seen one out there, man. That thing was crazy. It don't even make sense. A woman can't have 2 gods. A woman can't have 2 husbands. How is a woman who's gonna lead of her? Say you had something crazy like that. You got a woman that has 2 husbands. Who's she supposed to listen to? You got one husband say, I told you to do this. You got the other husband saying, I told you to do this. She can't be pregnant at your house and then pregnant at my house. It doesn't work that way. And that's what these women of this world has done. They think it's cool having multiple baby daddies. And then when they say, I want a real man, I want a man that's going to love me and my kids, we're looking at, why would I want to settle down with a woman that has multiple children? It's one thing to have maybe 1 or 2, but these women have all gone out, and these women have 5 kids, all different child's fathers. And then with that also being said, none of them was even married. They were just giving themselves away. Women were playing polygamy, but they was doing it, having many husbands. The woman body is not designed for that. A woman's body is not designed to keep having different DNAs in her womb. That's where you have the HPV virus comes from. Stuff like that can't happen like that. A woman is not supposed to have multiple men. She's only designed to have one man. And that's how it is. And that's how it's going to be in the kingdom. We're going to turn to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 6. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughter ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid of any amazement. So that's showing you that a woman cannot have multiple men. You can't have a woman calling every man her Lord. You can't have that. A woman's only supposed to call one man her Lord or her master, and that's supposed to be her husband. We're going to turn to 1 Corinthians 11:3. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God, is Yahweh. This is how it's supposed to work. And y'all going off, not trying to follow this. The head of Yahweh Shai is Yahweh. And over us, the men, is Yahweh Shai. And beneath us are the women. That is how it's supposed to work. The grandfather Yahweh has many that worship him, but only through Yahweh Shai. And us men worship Yahweh Shai. But to get to worship the Father, that is Yahweh, we must do it through Yahweh Shai. And for the women, they must honor their husband so they can worship Yahweh Shai and worship the Father, Yahweh. Just as Yahweh has many that worship him, the same thing Yahweh Shai had many that worship him. The angels worship him. We worship him. Our wives worship him. Our children worship him. And we worship him. And our wives worship us. So that's all I have to say. That's how it is. Peace and blessings to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone. Those that's out there spreading this truth. I know this was a long one, but these things needed to be brought out. I just really wanted to emphasize. There's nowhere you're going to find in the book that is saying that the Father, Yahweh, through Yahweh Bashem Yashai, has condemned a man marrying multiple wives. You're not going to find it. He has nothing wrong with a man marrying multiple wives. They only have a problem is when a man marries a woman or wives that they are steadfast in the truth, because he does not want you to be taken astray and come like how King Solomon did. At his old age, his wives turned him away, just as Eve did Adam. And she was just one, and she turned him away. So that's something to be thinking about. A lot of people think that you have to have multiple wives to turn you away. Shoot, in this society, all you need is one woman to break you down and to take everything. I mean, we see this every day. We see these women taking these men to court, and the men losing everything. That's why they want to get a prenup. And when you tell the woman you want to get a prenup, they think you don't love them. We just trying to protect ourselves because it's been an ongoing thing what these women go out here and do. They'll take your money leave you, start sleeping with another man, take his money, and keep it going. It's getting crazy out here with what these women doing. But they ain't going to have none of that in the kingdom. That's right. Shalom.